Hey everybody, Marcus here. Over the last several months, I have begun to receive requests from my subscribers for some guidance on getting into philosophy. Now, I have thrown out pieces of advice, here and there throughout my videos, but I have yet to put together a comprehensive and unified set of suggestions on how to approach the topic. Philosophy, like any field, can be incredibly intimidating to get started with. There are dozens of well-known philosophers and thousands of books that someone can pick up on the subject after all. However, not all philosophers are created equal, nor are all books of value to those first starting out. In addition to this, there's a vast lexicon surrounding philosophy that can scare away potential newcomers. However, let me assure you, despite this diversity of material, getting started is incredibly easy when you come to see the overarching picture of the discipline. Firstly, philosophy is often referred to as the long debate or perpetual conversation. Now, imagine what this means. Imagine yourself arriving at a house party that started, several hours before. When you first enter the party, you are going to see a bunch of groups standing around, each having their own conversations. You spot a friend of yours in one of those groups and then approach the group that he is with. When you approach the group, you can hear a conversation going on. The person currently speaking is in the middle of some story you have never heard before. You did not hear the beginning of the story, so you have no idea what's going on. And this is exactly the experience you will have when approaching philosophy for the first time. You will be standing around listening to people in the middle of a conversation whose beginning you never heard and therefore have no context to make any sense of it. So, what I want to do in this video is induct you into the long debate. But like any debate, it will make much more sense if you hear it from the beginning. Now, with this said, we can draw our first conclusion about philosophy. Modern philosophers are talking about things at the end of the story. Well, at least at the end of the story as has already been told. This means that modern philosophers will be talking in context that has been informed by a conversation you never heard. This can be a problem for someone starting out with philosophy, as you will most likely encounter references to those that came before. Also, these modern philosophers may very well be using specialized language describing ideas that have been developed by much older philosophers. Now, let us combine the concept of the long debate with another idea. Philosophy does not follow a progression like science. Now, let me clarify what I mean. In science, new ideas have a habit of superseding older ideas. For example, you do not need to learn how epicycles work in order to understand modern cosmology. Now, for those who are not aware of what epicycles are, let me quickly explain. Before it was established that the Earth revolves around the Sun, there was a science accounting for the movement of celestial bodies. The motions of the celestial bodies were understood through a theory referred to as the epicycles. When it was established that the Earth revolves around the Sun, the entire body of knowledge pertaining to epicycles was thrown into the garbage. This phenomenon of throwing a whole body of philosophical work into the trash is extremely rare. In fact, this phenomenon seems to be mostly contained to natural philosophy, which, as we know, is what science is. What this means is that ideas that are thousands of years old are still relevant today and still hotly debated. As a consequence of this, reading modern philosophy as opposed to ancient philosophy does not necessarily give you leading-edge development in thought. Okay, now that we have the paradigm of the long debate in place, as well as the relationship of modern philosophers to those who preceded them, we need to turn our attention to classifications of philosophy. First, we need to look at the highest level and most obvious division. This is the division between Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy. This division exists because there is no common root between Western and Eastern thought. These two realms of thought developed independently. Eastern philosophy encompasses thought such as Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, the Indian Vedas, and so forth. I am not well versed in Eastern philosophy, so I cannot give any recommendations as to how to pursue it. Western philosophy, on the other hand, has a single root, the ancient Greeks. All of Western philosophy stems from the works of Plato. Now, Socrates was the teacher of Plato, and in turn, Plato was the teacher of Aristotle. And now, Socrates never wrote anything himself. I mean, almost all that is known of the thoughts of Socrates comes through the 36 dialogues of Plato. And what is incredible about Plato is that all of his works have survived to this day, and this cannot be unfortunately said for Aristotle. Now, it has been said that in Western philosophy, everything after Plato is merely a footnote to Plato. Now, there is an enormous amount of truth in this, and in my opinion, the first truly original philosopher who emerges after Plato was Nietzsche. Now, this is not in any way meant to diminish the importance of other philosophers. It is only meant to highlight to you that understanding Plato is principal to understanding all of Western philosophy. And secondly, Plato is the start of the long debate, the beginning of the conversation. After the division between Eastern and Western philosophy, let us dive into the next broad division of Western philosophy. This is the division between continental and analytic philosophy. Now, this division is, well, a modern invention as it has only come into being around 100 years ago. Some, argue that there is no meaningful distinction between continental and analytic philosophy. And, for the most part, I agree with this assertion as far as substantive issues are concerned. However, I still call out this distinction because there's a large stylistic distinction between continental and analytic philosophy. First, let us understand why these two camps have the names they do. First, continental philosophy is called continental because the philosophers originated from continental Europe. Analytic philosophy is called as such partially for geographic reasons and partially for the actual approach used by analytic philosophers. Analytic philosophers originated from the UK or America in terms of geography, though this is no longer true today as analytic philosophers can be found all over the world. However, their origins stem from these locations. Analytic philosophy also differs from continental philosophy in the scope that each work covers. Continental philosophers, tend to have a very broad and holistic approach while developing their ideas. They tend to combine all sorts of parts of life in order to create accounts of the subjects they talk about. Analytic philosophers, on the other hand, tend to have a laser focus on the smallest of details. This means that a work by an analytic philosopher tends to be very sterile and focused, whereas continental philosophers will have more poetic components and tackle the subjects broadly. Where a 300-page book from a continental philosopher could cover, say, things like love, friendship, truth, and, say, aesthetics, all in one argument, leading to some account that unifies all these concepts. The analytic philosopher will have a 300-page book devoted, exclusively, say, to the concept of truth. Analytic philosophers tend to focus on a narrow range of subjects and then spend all their time analyzing those subjects, whereas a continental philosopher will tend to take a large number of subjects and try to unify these subjects. However, for our intents and purposes, the striking difference someone new to philosophy will experience between the two is the style of writing. Continental philosophy is much more pleasant to read and usually strikes a good balance between rigor and breadth. Analytic philosophy reads more, like a technical manual and can seem grossly detached from day-to-day life. So, these are the major ways we can divide philosophy without getting into divisions based on substantive matters. For the purpose of someone new to philosophy, these are the only divisions they need to keep in mind. Now, let us move on to the content types of philosophical works. Now, earlier we said that not all books are created equal. I say this because in my experience, philosophical books tend to fall into four categories: primary texts, exegetical texts, historical texts, and pop philosophy. Now, primary texts are where the magic happens. These are pure philosophical works that focus on a topic or range of topics and put forward arguments in order to develop the ideas introduced in these texts, or work towards further developing ideas from other primary texts. Now, this can also be observed in MGTOW videos. For example, my video on the wall would be a primary text style of video. In it, I put forward many arguments in developing and understanding the concept of the wall. Exegetical texts, on the other hand, are commentaries on primary texts. Let's take an example. The dialogue entitled The Republic in Plato is a primary text. If a philosopher writes a book trying to explain what Plato meant in the Republic, he's composing an exegetical text. Exegetical texts can be very useful in helping the reader understand primary texts, but themselves do not really offer as much philosophical punch as a primary text does. Exegetical texts are usually written by, academics who have spent a lot of time understanding a specific philosopher and wish to contribute their insights to the community at large. My video entitled On the Genealogy of Social Justice Warriors is an exegetical style video in which I explain one of Nietzsche's aphorisms. Next, we have historical texts. These are books that usually give some sort of historic perspective on the development of an idea, over the generations, or focus on giving insight into the world that helped shape the works of a specific philosopher. One example would be the work of Pierre Hadot. His book entitled Philosophy as a Way of Life is an amazing exposition on the role of philosophy within the ancient Greek world. In a small way, the video you are listening to now has a historical composition to it, a little bit at least. Historical texts are, even further detached from philosophy itself and offer even less meat than exegetical texts. Finally, we have pop philosophy. These are usually practical self-help style books that use philosophical ideas to give advice, on how to lead a better life. Of all the styles of texts, these are the least philosophical, as they tend to completely omit much of the justification behind the ideas offered. Now, my video entitled Leaving a Legacy is kind of similar to that style. Now, with all of this said, I am now in a position to help you plan a roadmap in your philosophical development. I will do this for two types of learning objectives. If you are serious in beginning a journey into philosophy and want to get the best head start in, what you hope to be a lifelong learning process, I will recommend the path I refer to as the long debate induction. However, if you would like to get exposure to philosophical ideas to, help you understand things that are important in, say, day-to-day life, but do not see yourself pursuing philosophy in the long term, I will recommend the path I call the Life Crash Course. Regardless of which category you fall into, you will only need one book. For the Life Crash Course path, I recommend you get yourself a copy of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. Now, this book is about 300 pages and covers subjects such as love, friendship, justice, virtue, happiness and how to achieve it. It examines what it means to be human, and it tries to unify all of these subjects into one coherent system. If you read this book cover to cover, you will gain massive insights into the human condition, and all of this without having to tackle too many highly abstract metaphysical issues. Though very practical, this is a very influential and important primary text within the discipline of philosophy. The reason I have selected it is because of the sheer scope of subjects covered. The long debate induction path is going to be different, however. To pursue this path, I recommend you get a copy of the Cooper translation of The Complete Works of Plato. Now, this is an 1,800-page book of all 36 of Plato's dialogues. Once you have this book, I would like you to do the following. First, watch my 3 videos on philosophical method. Then, read the dialogue entitled Euthyphro, followed by the dialogue entitled Meno. After you have done this, rewatch my 3 videos on philosophical method. Now, this first leg of your journey will help answer the question, how do I philosophize? On the second leg of your journey, I want you to reread the dialogue Euthyphro, followed by the Apology, then Credo, then Thedo. These 4 dialogues together give you a loose plot of the trial and death of Socrates. Now, this leg of your journey will help you answer the question, how will philosophy transform me? On the third leg of your journey, I ask that you read all 10 books of the Republic. Now, this is around 230 pages in total. This leg will help answer the question, what is the point of philosophy? Now, it is important to do the 3 legs in the order I just described, as your understanding of method will help immensely in understanding what follows in leg 2, and 3 of the induction. After you have completed these 3 legs, you can read the rest of the dialogues in any order. It is also at this point that you can consider looking at some exegetical texts or videos to help you better absorb what you have read from the primary text. Now, I have selected Plato as the primary text for a number of reasons. Firstly, it is the foundation of Western philosophy and the beginning of the long debate. Secondly, the dialogues are some of the most beautiful prose ever composed by human beings, which makes the dialogues a pleasure to read. And thirdly, there is no usage of any fancy philosophical lexicon, as it had not yet been invented by philosophers. This makes the language in Plato's works accessible to everyone. Another point of advice I would like to give any aspiring philosophers is to try and focus on one philosopher at a time. It takes a while to get a good understanding of what the work of any one philosopher is about. You must get used to his language, to his style, to his method and selection of topics. If you jump around between philosophers, you will be getting much less from the time you spend reading, as nuance will be lost on you. So, I hope this has helped those who wish to explore this amazing field. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment or privately message me. Thanks for listening. Go team.